Sexual grooming of victims could be happening closer to home than you think. It occurs in family households and often in religious institutions. The Omotoso trial has shown our rape victim Cheryl Zondi was groomed to perform sexual acts on the Nigerian pastor Timothy Omotoso. Joining me now to discuss this is survivor Olivia, William, Segodisho and Keoratile Ngobeni, founder of Women and Men Against Child Abuse, Miranda Jordan. And from PE, we have CRL Commission Chair Thoko Mkhwanazi-Xaluva. Thank you all for joining us. Olivia, I'm going to start off with you. Right. Bob Hewitt, yes. He sexually groomed you. Tell us about the story and how he did it.
Well, I think he had his eye on me. I think he went out and he looked for us. And I speak of us because there's lots of us. And he approached me, got me in his grips, and he groomed me for probably about 18 months before he raped me.
And how did he groom you?
Wow, he told me how wonderful I was. He told my parents that he was going to make me a Wimbledon star. He had me in almost all of his squads. So I was pretty much with him almost 5-6 days a week. Where at one place or another I was playing tennis under his watch, and he always used to make me feel exceptionally special. He took me overseas when I was 11 years old. I played on the international circuit there. Some stuff happened over there that well, now I know was grooming, and I think he just waited until he got his opportunity.
And were you shocked when it happened? Had you been expecting it? Did you think that had the alarm bells been ringing?
You know, I was 12 years old. I didn't really know what was happening. But what he had done was he had spoken to me so much about it that I actually believed that it was something I needed to do in order to further my tennis career and grow as a human being and grow as a person. So he had convinced me that this was something I needed to do. It was a big discussion in the court case during our trial.
And William, you were blocking your ears when Cheryl was talking in the witness stand there. What happened to you? You were also subjected to a pastor and his sexual needs. What happened?
Yes, you know, I've been following Cheryl's story very closely, and every time I watch it, I get very upset and very emotional because I know what she's going through. Especially, I take a great dislike to the manner in which the lawyer for Omotoso is being so harsh on her, but that is how lawyers function. So I can just imagine what she's going through because I'm going through the same thing. So I can resonate with her feelings.
And is there similarity in the story about the grooming? Does that...
Yes, you see, with the grooming thing, as Olivia is saying, it's not something that you realize at that age. You are chosen from a group of children. In my case, that is what happened. And you are made to feel that you are special, that you are exceptional. You are not like the other kids. And you get offered things that then endear you to the predator, because that's what really they are, you see. And so he forms this special bond with you. For me, it happens for about 9 months, the grooming. Took 9 months, and mind you, I came from an environment, I came from the streets, and I literally worshipped this man who picked me literally from the streets and gave me shelter. And
does it make it any easier worshipping that person when you realize what their end game is and when they inflict whatever he did to you?
No, it doesn't, because you never have any inclination as to the purpose, the reason behind this special treatment. You are a child, and you're looking at this man as an adult, plus he's a priest. So it's a child-adult relationship. He's your mentor. He's like a father figure to you. You don't expect that from somebody like that. And so when it comes and when it happens, it shocks you. You just have to numb yourself to it in a way, because especially for me, it was like a double-edged sword in a sense that I had not yet been thinking of sex at that age, but I knew that sex was something you associate with the opposite sex. So it was a double blow that I had to learn of sex in such a cruel way, and also with a man, an older man at that. And so that really did mess me up.
I can imagine.
Yes.
And Keoratile, I mean, you, similar sort of experience, but the difference is it was your father.
Yeah. Well, not my father, but someone who played a role as a father figure in my life. So it happened when I was 8, but I wasn't raped. I was just molested. So he did to me, and then what he did, and then he also wanted me to do the same thing. And once everything else was over, I was told that because I did the same thing to him, then I should keep quiet because I can go to jail. And I mean, I was 8 years old. So as a child, I'm now scared that, okay, I did this thing to this person. So the best thing is for me to just keep quiet in order for me not to be in jail. So
Miranda, is that what gets them? Is that you become complicit in this act?
You just took the word out of my mouth. And I'm just looking at sort of 1,800 cases. We work annually at both our clinics. And this is the biggest problem. If I wanted to read you the whole list of perpetrators that are known to children, it's a huge list, from mothers' boyfriends to family friends to cousins to, I mean, this is our list. This is a kind of list that we draw up when clients walk into our clinics to understand, so that we can statistically say just how many. So we've got male juvenile friends, we've got school friends, we've got brothers' friends, we've got stepfathers' friends, and stepfathers. I've got the whole thing. So if I look at our stats over the last 5 years, that's what I'd bring to you tonight, we're looking at about 82 to 85% are known and are well known. And the difficulty of a child, first of all, coming through a clinic like ours, which works with criminal cases, is first of all identifying and then knowing the consequences of breaking up a family, breaking up a community, maybe causing their mother to be out on the street. So the power imbalance also, so we have in all the cases, there's a huge power of daughter and child, pastor and learner and coach and child again, and also the complicitness and the fact that the grooming already makes you part of it. Now, at what stage do you stop and go back? When you look back and you've already reached a point where certain things you may have accepted, hoping that this would maybe be the last time, or yes, I want to have that thing, as in William, a good education, or I want my parents' love still, and I hope they stop.
Why would you groom rather than, say, go straight into the sexual assault? Does the grooming mean that it can continue longer?
So what happens, so most of our cases are chronic cases, and that is because it takes, first of all, the longer the grooming process, the longer the child will take to come out, because there's huge complications here. There's huge sense of betrayal. There's the fact that you have so much shame in being almost involved. Whereas acute cases, and that's what I think is sort of the stranger danger aspect we were talking about, is that if you look at that, that's 11%. In fact, I looked at an American and Australian study also before coming. They have even sort of less. They've got 89 to 90%. And those cases are generally they are more violent and they are more acute. We just look at the Dross case we've just had recently. That's a violent, opportunistic attack. And those people will often be caught. So that's what I'm trying to say. The people who won't be caught very often until much later, in fact, till they're much older and almost on their way out, will be the people who have long access.
Surprise, the sort of Bob Hewitt case.
Yeah.
Thoko, I'm going to come to you, but I just want to show this video very quickly of Cheryl Zondi when she was rejoicing as she was welcomed back. And let's talk through that.
I'm so grateful to God for that. I'm so happy to be here. So happy.
Thoko, she was rejoicing, crying. She was so happy being accepted back into the church. What happens in that sort of scenario? She knows that something's gone wrong, but why does she go back? And tell us how the church and many people in the church can manipulate this sort of situation.
Well, you know, the church is much closer than even a family because there's God involved in it. So there's trust beyond just the human beings in the room. You trust your religion. So it's also much more intricate and much more difficult because in this particular case, and in many other cases, you know, there are over 40 young people who have come forward. And in this particular case, the issue was, if you do tell, God will punish you. Or if you don't do this with me, God will punish you. So those things become very difficult. They go beyond the natural into the supernatural. Even if you could say you are just a human being, but it's drawing on a much deeper power, and that makes it much more complicated than any other normal human being threatening another human being.
Do you think churches take advantage of the fact that many of those who are subjected to this are easy prey because they might have, you know, in your case, you came from the streets, or people coming from families with problems? Does it make it easier?
You know, what we've discovered is that in the majority of cases, there's a very purposeful selection. Most of these young people do not live with their fathers. So that's one indicator. And you come into a circumstance because you want something, you want it so much, and you promise that thing. Most of the time it was music in this instance. So in other cases, some children could be poor, and they could be promised a better life. But what has been most profound in this case is that this particular case, it's not all children who are poor. It's not all children who were desperate at the time. Some of them, their careers had taken off, and others had very good lives at home. But it's mainly single parents.
Not just children, is it? I want to talk about, sorry, excuse me jumping in here. Olivia, the fact that your parents were also groomed. How does that work?
It seems that a lot of parents are groomed. Mine aren't the only ones, and it's
because they testified against you as well, didn't they?
Yes, they did testify against me, and I think what really just was, you know, the ultimate was when my dad was testifying, and he said his words were, he could never have done it. He's an icon. And you know, the belief that he was just the perfect person, and yeah, you know, I can't even. You know, for me, it's exceptionally difficult to discuss, and it is coming out more and more that there are so many parents that do this, and I don't know that it's the parents that are doing it. Yes, they are groomed.
Tell us about, I mean, in Omotosa's case as well, we're expecting, I believe, there are 2 co-accused as well who are involved in the grooming. I mean, what do they get out of it?
Maybe access to other children, maybe learning how to groom other children. But I'm just listening also to what Olivia was saying about parents being groomed, and about parents also dreams being groomed. So, for instance, she was a great tennis player. I'm going to take your child there, and parents are, fantastic, look at the amount of, you know, he's going to put the work in, he's going to do this, and my child's going to be that. Or I'll give your child an education, you know, an education which far surpasses the education you could give. So maybe towards, at some stage, we can just talk about, you know, as a parent, to be so present with your child. And certainly what I'm saying is not going to protect every child. There is no possibility on that. But your presence and the fact that your child can come to you with the worst thing. This has happened, or I don't like this, or I have failed, or I'm on drugs, or I've had sex and I'm 14, or whatever it is. Be the ear. Because if you are not the ear, somebody else will be the ear.
Okay, in your family, I mean, I should imagine there must be an incredible amount of guilt, because families must know that there's something, mustn't they? They must pick up that something has gone wrong, something's amiss.
Well, with me, I don't think anyone knew anything until I actually, voiced out my concern, because there was a situation whereby, because he was not my real dad, but there was a situation whereby he'd come and live with us. So as a reflex, I just objected and said, no, he can't come live with us. So that's when my mom started asking questions. Why wouldn't you want to live with this person? He has raised you and whatnot. And I think, like she said, emotional support is a very important thing, especially in situations like this. Because when I did tell my family, we had a family meeting, we spoke about it, and that was it. I was told that, no, we can't take it any further because this person, we financially gaining from him. He was playing a role in our life financially. So if we were to pursue a case, then that would mean that obviously we wouldn't have the kind of lifestyle that we used to. And also the people in my life would also lose a father figure. So I was supposed to, just deal with it by myself, and I ended up having major depression. I started cutting. So I think emotional support from family plays a very, very big role. Because
okay, we're going to talk about those emotions a little bit more, but I just want to listen to another soundbite by Cheryl Zondi. She recalls a time where her accused greeted her and other girls inappropriately. She also just dismissed the interaction, though.
Did you mention the fact that accused number one used to recline on his couch and require young girls to come and hug him in an inappropriate manner while he was lying on the couch?
Yes, I did mention that he was greeted by all the girls and I did the same, even though I thought it was inappropriate.
You said that you thought it was inappropriate at the time.
Yes, I did mention it.
But you dismissed it. Is that your evidence?
And I did the same as the other girls, yes.
Why did you specifically mention that?
Because it was a red flag for me.
We've got a call on the line from Durban. Nelly, go ahead.
Hi.
Hello, Nelly. Go ahead.
Yes, I believe the girl is real because this pastor was very intimidating. He was intimidating even the congregation. I was invited there, and these girls, when they are singing there, he will stop them and frighten them. He's such an intimidating person, and this guy can profess, and then they believe he's like God, At the same time, I could see that, no. Something is wrong with this man.
Yeah.
I didn't go to that church again. But he was intimidating these girls. I saw it 3 times I visited there. I wanted to see this.
Oh, you saw it? Sorry, I thought you were talking about the court case. You actually saw him doing that?
Beg your pardon?
You saw him doing that?
I didn't see him doing anything.
No, but you feel him being intimidating and...
Just intimidating. Intimidating even the boys who are taking him to the toilet when he's supposed to go outside. There's some people who are following him. Intimidating and shouting at everybody. Talk less of the choir was just intimidating even the way they should stand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Nelly. Okay, so, there people can tell that there's something amiss in the church, and maybe he became all too powerful because he had so many victims. Talk to us about the similarities in that case with yours, or how the sort of power play plays out.
Yes, you see, my take on this charismatic churches is they sort of behave like some sort of a cult. They are very good manipulators. As Sis Thoko was alluding to earlier on, this combination of God and the personal relations. My belief is that when you combine the two, it kind of gets confusing in my case, it did, because he was a spiritual figure to me, also a father figure, and I would go to church and listen to him preach about peace, love, taking care of the children, and all those things. And I get confused because what he says in the church is not what he's practicing on me. So that kind of also had an effect on my relationship with God. It broke my faith You see, so it doesn't only it's not physical. It's not only sexual, but it plays havoc with your mind and also with the way you relate to deity.
Can I talk to you?
Yeah, sure.
So you were
a little bit. Yeah.
You were crying there when you heard that. Do you ever? I mean, clearly you don't ever get over it. How do you put it into a comfortable place?
You know, I've found that by helping other people and sharing my experience has eased it. I do get triggered, as I've just been now.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thoko, going back to the church, yeah, I mean, because she tried to escape, didn't she? But she, you know, that's so difficult as well, isn't it, that power play? Thoko, you know, when it comes to a church and the sort of power that pastors have, I mean, what are you doing in your organization to put a stop to this? There are clearly too many people in these dangerous positions. Where does it stop?
It stops when there's regulation in terms of the practitioners themselves. Of course, you can't regulate religion, but you can regulate in terms of they have to be registered. Number one, we have to know who's where doing what. And before you are registered, you have to be vetted to see if you've got crimes that you've committed. And thirdly, you need to belong to an umbrella organization that will monitor you. And so that when people have a problem, they can go to the executive of the umbrella organization and report that something is happening there. If you follow this particular case, there is a mother who tried to get her children out. The police refused to help. Everybody refused to help. She had no other place to go to. So you need to have a peer review mechanism, just like doctors, lawyers, etc. And we've proposed this to Parliament, and will continue saying we need regulation. Without this regulation, people will continue being violated, being abused, and God's name will be part of the narrative that God will do this to you. And that's a very powerful spiritual kind of abuse that we can think of.
I just wanted to bring something up here that I thought is very important, because it's actually happened since your case and the Frankel case and the future cases and the Catholic Church faith case, is that issues around historical abuse. Because if you watch the questioning, a lot of the questioning is about why didn't you do something then? As grown people, we know how difficult it is to come forward and tell something so intimate, but also that affects so many people around us. We have to start telling our children now that we're going to start talking about this. We have to tell our families. Some may disown us, some may be with us. Some people, even in our work, may not be supportive of us going through that process. So we've tried very hard as an organization to speak about why children disclose so late, why it is so incredibly difficult. And it's something which we feel we really have to bring into our justice system, because the type of questions you see being asked for us are abusive and pointless to a very large extent. And I think that they really have to understand the actual psychological development and also the compartmentalization that children have to do to survive that time, because some of what's happening to them, you would not be able to survive if you're just saying either it's okay or I'll deal with it later, or it's actually not happening and it's not that bad.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're running out of time. I just want to bring a caller in. He's a pastor from Witbank. Erastus, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Jane and your guest.
Good evening.
Yes, look, I'm a pastor myself, and it leads one to that embarrassing situation. The million-dollar question mark here is that when the pastor doing all these things, teaching people, this afternoon I was listening to SAFM, another pastor was teaching people to talk. If they eat a dog, they've got cancer and all these types of things they will do. So we as Africans, we need to do a self-introspection, because most of the people who are doing this, they're not from our country. and then make sure that those regulations and the umbrella of recognized law and court being punished for the trust of the lawyers and auditors and so this is embarrassing.
Okay, Rasta, sorry, it's not a good line, but I think it's about talking out and exposing
Yes.
this.
Yes.
That surely is the most important thing, isn't it? And not to be silent.
And I think also in terms, especially with black families, you know, from my point of view, I don't really blame how my family reacted to the situation, because I mean, in black families, there's this taboo about not talking about these things. You know, the family's reputation, how people are going to see us. We are so concerned how, you know, everyone from the outside views our family. So, I mean, I think it's also a thing that as black people, you know, in terms of going for therapy and whatnot, we should make it a very important aspect in terms of the healing process, because I never went, you know, for therapy to deal with what I went through. And
I should imagine you really need therapy.
Yeah,
you can't do it on your own.
The sooner the better.
Yeah. So I think that's also a thing, and not holding, like not blaming your family, because a lot of people ask me, but how, you know, do you have a great relationship with your family today after everything? And I think I'm empathetic to how everything panned out, and I understand from their side it was very difficult for them to accept the situation, and it's taboo. We don't grow up hearing about these things in our families, that an uncle did this to one of our cousins or whatever.
So it's another thing that gets added to it, isn't it? I mean, hearing and seeing the public outcry and what an incredible person she has been on the stand. I mean, that power, it's got people talking. Do you think it could make a difference? I mean, what needs to be done now to keep this momentum?
You know, she's really an inspiration, that lady, for me. Even under the sad circumstances that she is in, I'm very proud of what she's doing. You know, I just want to go a little back to what she just said about this psychology being a Western concept of healing. I probably would never have broken the silence had I not gone to therapy for counseling. It took me over around 40 sessions that I had to attend to prepare myself for this, knowing that now I'm going to come out and I'm going to speak. And I had a lot of fear, of course, as to the consequences. That's why I had to first let my family know about it before I came out. And there came a time when I came out, it was time for me now to stop considering how everybody else will react or how everybody else would feel, because it was all about me, you see. And I am the one who is living with this scar. It's not physical. You can't see it on my face or on my body, but it's inside, and it eats at you. You understand? You know, anything can trigger the memories. You could just be walking in town, and then an innocent nun is doing her shopping, and then or you see a Bible, a simple thing like just like a Bible. Can trigger all those memories, and you find that now you become also it affects the way you relate to people, especially your family, your wife, your kids, because if you don't tell them, like I didn't, they don't know how to. They don't understand why this mood swings, why and where then from the wife she'll take it personal, to think that. Maybe it's something about me. Maybe I'm not, especially when it comes to intimacy. You see.
Let me ask you this: how, if somebody feels that they have these inclinations of becoming that they want to groom somebody, is it stoppable?
You know, sexual abuse is probably one of the poorest prognosis of rehabilitation. It really is. It's been widely studied, It is really, really difficult. Probably, I'd say, juvenile sexual abusers would probably, so perhaps children who have experienced and start acting out their behavior and there's no stopping, they will become adult predators. And again, you've hit on something which is a really important topic, because the amount of programs for juvenile offenders in this country right now is absolutely shocking. And it is because we are dealing with an avalanche of abuse coming. And can we do both? I mean, we ran a little program for a little while just trying to understand why we were having younger and younger sexual offenders. But again, it's almost, it needs almost its own organization to do that. But acting out, obviously, from sexual abuse is not, it's not a, people used to think it was a much bigger prognosis of abusing other children or other people. Actually, the greatest self-harm is the harm to yourself. So it is all the things you do in a punishment to yourself is far what our studies are at our clinics are showing much more.
Say, I mean, it could be in the family, institutions, in churches. Thoko, I mean, do you have any idea how many people have been affected by this in the church? What sort of numbers are we looking at here?
We're looking at thousands of people because the majority of them keep quiet. And sometimes, one thing we've realized is that this goes even to people who are already married because they're desperate for something. Then the pastor says, if you sleep with me, you will succeed in this thing, finding a job or healing if you're not well, etc. And a lot of them have come forward to us to say, I've done this and my husband doesn't know about this, my family doesn't know. I don't want to go through a criminal justice system process. So there are thousands. And I think those are the ones who come forward even if they are not going to look for any criminal justice system process. But there are those who sit at home quietly. So it could be hundreds of thousands we're looking at. If you look at the number of churches we have in this country and how many of them are unregulated, people are running their own shows, like in this instance, Omotoso was running his own show and reporting to nobody in this country at all.
Yeah, that's got to change as well. So Bob Hewitt, I believe, is appealing for early release.
He's actually appealing. He's changed it to correctional supervision, so he wants to go home and have house arrest.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
So he's looking for a sentence conversion. Although Olivia was presented with a document that's a parole board meeting, so we all thought he's looking for early parole. But actually, between you and I, it's potato. Because honestly, whether it's sentence conversion or parole, what he's asking is to go home and kind of live his life as he was. And it took Olivia and a team for us to get him a sentence after 5 years. Olivia came to us in 2011. NPA had not looked at her document for how long, Olivia?
Well, it had been with them for a year.
It had been at them for a year. Not one,
nothing
happened. It took a press conference. It took the media, who are being huge supporters of actually talking about this, and then another 4 years until his final appeal.
Well, yes, yeah.
So he's only served 2 years, not even half.
Wow.
Not
and
even
it probably
half.
lives with you forever.
It's going to live with me forever. It definitely is.
Well, thank you, all of you, for talking to us about this. I mean, very brave coming forward.
Thank
really
you.
respect and admire you. Thank you very much, William.
You're welcome.
Keoratile, Miranda, Thoko, and Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.